Why? Brand supremacy. That's why. If you found yourself questioning anything WWE did on this show, on Monday's Raw, Wednesday's NXT, or really anything WWE's done in the build to Survivor Series this Sunday, that's your answer right there. Brand supremacy. That's why. Why did members of Team Raw face off in various matches for the men and women on Monday's Raw? Why did the Street Profits align with Team Raw despite the fact they were with NXT for 2 years and were just drafted to Raw a month ago? Why does any of this matter to anyone if there's nothing on the line for any brand come Sunday? Brand supremacy. We're supposed to care about it. But I will say this, though. Everything about the whole Survivor Series brand supremacy bullshit is so fake and phony that it's really difficult to care, especially since now we've had this for, 2-3 years? I think this is the 4th year they've done this whole Raw versus SmackDown nonsense. Granted, this year marks the first year that they've involved NXT, which is refreshing. It's cool. Love to see that. And it's really made the build to Survivor Series the most exciting it's been in many, many years. Beyond that, though, even with the involvement with NXT, none of this even matters. None of this will mean anything. Come Monday's Raw, when things are back to normal, for better or for worse, none of what we're seeing this weekend, at least with the main roster, will mean anything. Again, it's been cool to see the NXT stars show up on Raw and on SmackDown, and see even the SmackDown superstars and the Raw superstars pop up on NXT. And a lot of those guys were previously on NXT, so it was kind of a homecoming for them, which was kind of cool. Other than that, though, none of this matters to anyone. No one could possibly give two shits about the whole brand supremacy nonsense. With all that being said, I know that sounds a bit of a negative note to start on for today's SmackDown review. This was actually a pretty good show. I'm recording this minutes removed from the show. I already have a lot to record and get to this weekend, with TakeOver being tomorrow, Survivor Series being on Sunday. And not only that, but we also have a ton of new network content going up on the WWE Network over the course of the next 4 days. Tonight was the new WWE Untold episode with Sting, focusing on his final match in WWE. Actually, last match ever against Seth Rollins 4 years ago in Night of Champions. Still have to watch that, review that. That should also be up today, that being Saturday here on the channel. So I'm trying to do a SmackDown review since I didn't do one last week. I was in New York City for the big event, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, SmackDown review today, which is basically what this video is, audio file, whatever, mini podcast. We're also doing the review of the Sting Untold episode on the network that aired on Friday. Tonight after TakeOver is the Chronicle on Cain Velasquez. I'm going to try to watch that after it airs tonight, and then get to it, review it tomorrow here for the channel. Then tomorrow after Survivor Series, and now this is the tough one, tomorrow after the pay-per-view, which is already going to be 4 hours alone, not even including the 2-hour kickoff, or however long it's going to fucking be. Probably just an hour, but I could be wrong. I think it might be 2 hours, actually, the more that I think about it, knowing it's a Big Four pay-per-view, but I guess we'll soon see. Coming off of that is the debut of the Broken Skull Sessions with Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker, which sounds absolutely amazing. As of this recording, now this is going up on Saturday, but I'm recording this currently on Friday. Friday marks the 29-year anniversary of The Undertaker's debut in WWE, which is incredibly impressive and cool. So I guess it's only fitting they do the Taker podcast on Sunday after the show, on the same show that he debuted on 29 years ago today, as of Friday, that is. So I'll probably get to that again, probably Monday morning, Monday afternoon, just because Survivor Series is bound to be a long show, and I just do not have time to watch it. So I'll probably watch it early Monday, mid-Monday, try to get to it. I hear it's going to be around 2 hours, which is great. A lot of content there, but it's also going to be a lot to break down. So that review, I'm hoping to have up late Monday. I'm hoping. And if not, Tuesday. But we also have new network content going up after Raw on Monday. I want to say it's a new table for 3. I might be wrong. Oh, no, it's a new day of, I think. I think the new day of, it might be going up on the same Sunday as Survivor Series. I don't know. But we have a new day of episode going up on the draft day on SmackDown and Raw a few weeks ago, about a month ago. So there's a lot of new network content coming up that I will be getting to here on the channel in addition to this SmackDown review. So if you haven't already, now is as good of a time as any to subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification, that bell icon, whatever it is, to get notifications for whenever new videos are uploaded here to the channel, and you'll be notified as soon as the videos go up. So anyway, as far as SmackDown on Friday, again, like I said earlier, I thought on the whole, this was actually a pretty good show. If you weren't already excited for Survivor Series, I'm not sure how much this show moved the needle for you. But as someone, again, on paper, I think both shows, TakeOver and Survivor Series, have a lot of potential. Now, again, TakeOver has always delivered. They've done over 25 TakeOver specials in the last 4 or 5 years. Over the last 5 years, actually. They started in 2014. And every single one, while some were stronger than others, every single one has been good to great to amazing. So I'm sure Saturday show will be no exception. Survivor Series is more hit and miss. Some installments have been great. Some installments, especially the ones in recent years, have been very, some pretty good, like last year's had some good matches. But overall, though, the whole Raw versus SmackDown theme, it does nothing for me. At least, again, for me personally. Even when it didn't have the Raw versus SmackDown theme, it was still an afterthought. That 2015 show was unbearably terrible. I remember watching that show and thinking to myself, holy shit, that was one of the worst pay-per-views I've seen all year. Same, even worse with Survivor Series 2013. That was one of the worst shows, if not the worst pay-per-view I've seen in my 11 years as a WWE fan. I don't think Sunday will be quite that bad, but again, knowing this company and their track record and their notorious track record, anything is possible. Sometimes I feel like they go out of their way to disappoint us. Even when we have our expectations set low, they still find a way to deliver a show that's even below those expectations. So again, hopefully that's not the case with Sunday's show. I did preview and predict every match on the card with the illustrious RJ Marceau on Thursday's Wrestle Rant Radio. So if you haven't already checked it out, please do so. It's over an hour of excellent audio with RJ and I breaking down the TakeOver and Survivor Series cards. So no predictions for the pay-per-view on this show. We didn't really find out anything really about the card that we didn't already know, except for the fact that Team NXT for the women will likely consist of, as we found out at the start of this show, Rhea Ripley, Candice LeRae, Tegan Nox, Mia Yim, and the returning Toni Storm. So, going back even further than that, the show started off with Team SmackDown, the entire SmackDown roster outside of the arena, welcoming the Raw roster and the NXT roster to come on the show, and they invited them in the same way NXT did on Wednesday. So they opened the gates, the floodgates were open for any member of any brand to show up on this show. So the women started it off with Sasha Banks leading the squad of Lacey Evans, Nikki Cross, Carmella, and Dana Brooke, calling out, I think, any woman, maybe Raw or SmackDown. I thought it was specifically Raw, and they came out Charlotte, Natalya, the Kabuki Warriors, and Sarah fucking Logan. Yes, Sarah Logan is on Team Raw, despite the fact that she has not won a match on Raw in probably close to a year, and hasn't been on Raw, period, for close to 6 months. She is on Team Raw because they have no other options. Actually, that's not true, because they could have put Peyton Royce on the team, they could have put Billie Kay on the team. Fuck, I'd prefer Zelina Vega in that spot over Sarah Logan. She's probably won more matches on Raw in the last 6 months than fucking Sarah Logan has. So again, that's a questionable call in my opinion, but she was here on this show. Before SmackDown and Raw could go at it, the women of NXT came out, including, as I said, the aforementioned squad of Rhea Ripley, Candice LeRae, Mia Yim, Tegan Nox, and the returning Toni Storm. So, for anyone keeping track, we have not seen Toni Storm on WWE TV in like 3 months. As far as I know, unless I missed something, she has not been seen on any WWE sanctioned show since TakeOver, the UK NXT TakeOver, the NXT UK TakeOver in Cardiff on August 31st, when she lost the NXT UK Women's Championship to Kaylee Ray. Good match, could have been better, but she hasn't been seen since then. That was 3 months ago, and she never came back. I don't read the spoilers for NXT UK, so she might be coming back soon on an episode of NXT UK as TakeOver Blackpool 2 approaches. I'm not exactly sure. But other than that, though, I mean, again, those were taped for future shows, which have not been acknowledged on social media, on the website, on NXT UK itself as of right now. This was her first official appearance on any WWE show since then. So in my opinion, it came off as incredibly anticlimactic. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was cool to see her. I am a Toni Storm fan. But it was just weird, especially when you have Dakota Kai, who has been on SmackDown in recent weeks. She appeared on that SmackDown NXT Invasion episode back on November 1st. She got pinned in an 8-woman tag team match on SmackDown, I think last week. And maybe that was the reasoning for not in storyline putting her on the team, because she hasn't really been all that impressive lately. She got pinned in that tag team match. She lost to Shayna Baszler. What was it, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago on NXT. She got beat this week on NXT, getting beaten by, who was it, Kaylee Ray, actually? Yeah, so she got pinned then. I think she got pinned by the Kabuki Warriors when that happened for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles about a month ago. So she hasn't had a lot of luck lately, and I'm sure it is leading to some sort of a heel turn. But I think it would have been cool. I mean, Tegan Nox is on the team, so why not Dakota Kai? I understand why she's not on the team for the women on Saturday, but if you're going to bring in anyone to be on that team on Sunday, I think Dakota Kai makes the most sense, especially since, I mean, some SmackDown viewers have already seen her anyway in the last couple weeks. So I thought that was a weird call, but this, in my opinion, was not a confirmation, but more of a sign that Toni Storm might be bound, might be headed to NXT proper soon enough. Not quite yet. Again, she might be in action at that TakeOver Blackpool show in January, but beyond that, though, I'm sure she's not regaining, at least in my opinion, the NXT UK Women's Championship, nor should she. NXT's women's division right now is so stacked, they don't really need Toni, but I do think she'd be a fantastic fit there. She'd get over the same way that Rhea Ripley has in the last couple of months. But anyway, so this led to Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair versus Sasha Banks in a triple threat match. A match I never really thought I would see anytime soon, but we got it here on this show. Could have been a lot better than it was. It really wasn't about the in-ring action. It was more about the shenanigans at ringside with the women from SmackDown and Raw and NXT. It was good for what it was. Not as great as it could have been, again, but it was still enjoyable. Rhea Ripley did end up going over, which was cool, and the finish I thought was even cooler. Very well done finish. So Charlotte Flair locks in the figure 8 on Sasha. And you know how she kind of bridges her back to lock in the figure 8? While she does that, Rhea Ripley swoops in and gets like, not a cradle, but she rolls up Charlotte Flair for the victory, which I thought was really cool. And Sasha couldn't get out to break it up because she was locked in the figure 8. So I think they actually did a similar finish in NXT years ago. But instead of, and obviously instead of Bayley and Sasha, or instead of Rhea Ripley and Sasha, I think it was Bayley in the match and Becky Lynch. I feel like Charlotte Flair had the figure 8 on Bayley, and then Becky swooped in to pin Charlotte for the win to face Sasha at TakeOver Unstoppable a few years ago. But I thought that was a really well done finish, and Rhea Ripley picks up a big win. And I saw a lot of people talking about this, but I would not be shocked at all if Rhea Ripley is main roster bound before long, because she's really, really good. She doesn't necessarily have to win the NXT Women's Championship before she gets called up, inevitably. It would be nice. I'm not even saying she has to be the one to beat Baszler. That could be Tegan Nox. It could be really any woman. I mean, people were thinking Dakota Kai, which I guess you could always build to that, even though she's lost a lot lately. But we have seen stranger things in NXT happen. It doesn't have to be Rhea Ripley, but again, I wouldn't call her up like, hey, I was on NXT, but now I'm representing Raw because I got called up yesterday. Like, that'd be fucking weird. Maybe after WrestleMania, but I do see her getting called up sooner rather than later. She's really impressive, and she's one of their bright spots right now in the NXT Women's Division. Speaking of NXT talent, well, even before we had our next NXT appearance, we had Sami Zayn running into Baron Corbin backstage. He was trying to get the attention of Baron Corbin, or King Corbin rather, excuse me, and Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler backstage. Baron Corbin called Sami one of the most annoying people he's ever met, and then Sami called out Corbin to the ring. Or at least he made it sounded that way. He made it sound like he was calling out Corbin for a match, which never ended up happening. Corbin was like, okay, whatever. So Sami goes to the ring because he really wanted to show, the whole purpose of that segment was because he wanted to show Corbin what was in his, leather bag or velvet bag, whatever the fuck it is. So he had this black bag, brings it out to the ring with Shinsuke Nakamura, reveals it to be, which was rumored last week per WrestleVote, so credit to him for that rumor, which ended up coming true, the all-new Intercontinental Championship belt. So we do have an all-new IC title belt for the first time in, I would say 8 years, but when they brought back the current design, or now former design of the IC title, it was actually the classic championship they used in the 80s and 90s. So how new really was it, I guess probably not counting that one, the first IC, it was the first time the IC title look has changed in 8 years, because Cody brought back that prior design at Hell in a Cell 2011. And then before that, we had that fucking egg-looking shape one, that egg-shaped belt, which was terrible. We had that for probably close to a decade, I would say. I'm not sure when they retired the classic white Intercontinental title, or the black title, whatever color the leather strap was. It was black for a while, then white, and then black. I don't remember, but I think they got rid of that in the late 90s, and they brought in the egg-shaped one in the late 90s, if I remember correctly. So probably for the first time in about 20 years that we've got an all-new IC title design. And I'm going to be the first one to say, I think it's beautiful looking. I really do. I think it's a great-looking championship, and one of, honestly, the better-looking championships in that company. Because we've been so used to for so long now, getting the same shit for these fucking titles, not counting NXT. The main roster ones, when we found out years ago when the brand split was first brought back that we'd be getting new championships, like new tag titles, or, the 24/7 championship even just recently, or new women's championships, we figured, okay, something new, and it was the exact same shit from the other show. The SmackDown tag team titles are literally the Raw tag team titles, just with a blue strap. It was incredibly stupid. The women's championships aren't too bad, honestly, with the white championship and the blue in the middle and the red in the middle for the corresponding brands. I like that. The World Championships look terrible. The WWE title is whatever. The blue Universal Championship, the red Universal Championship, whatever the fuck it is, it's so lazy, it's dumb. I don't care what color it is. To have the exact same title that you do for Raw, just with a different color. Again, for the tag titles, for the women's titles, it's fine. For the World Championships, it's incredibly fucking lazy. The World Heavyweight Championship meant nothing by the end there, before they retired it in 2013. But even that was a nicer looking title than the Universal Championship by a fucking country mile. So while I will say this new Intercontinental Championship design looks beautiful, I hate the fact that they're getting rid of the white one. I mean, obviously I'm biased because I own a replica of the IC White Championship belt. I've had it now for about 2 years. You guys know the story, I would think by now. I've had that replica for about 2.5 years, and in that time, I have almost exactly 2.5 years, 2.5 years almost to the day, and in that time, I have gathered over 30 signatures of former champions on that championship belt, and obviously, it's not stopping anytime soon, and I love the white IC championship, I really do. So it breaks my heart they're getting rid of it. Maybe they'll bring it back at some point. I highly doubt it. They brought it back once, maybe again down the road, who knows. But no more. The white IC championship is. The new black leathered strapped one is really cool. The design on it looks awesome. And I won't say that every championship they've introduced on the main roster in recent years has been terrible. Because in their defense, the women's tag team titles, for as little as they've meant since they were introduced, by and large, their design is awesome too. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that. So after that, the Undisputed Era came out, confronted Nakamura and Sammy, because Sammy called out Roderick Strong, called him some dumb name like Ronnie or something like that. So that brought out not only Roderick Strong, but the entire Undisputed Era, who have been a staple in this whole NXT invasion since the start. So they came out, ran down Sammy, ran down Nakamura, which brought out the New Day and their tag team partners, Heavy Machinery. I almost thought for a second maybe Viking Raiders, but obviously that would make no sense. They're facing each other on Sunday, and they're opposing brands. So I'm glad they didn't do that. It was SmackDown's New Day and Heavy Machinery taking on the entire Undisputed Era as Nakamura and Sammy watch from the stage. Pretty good match, nothing too out of the ordinary, but seeing Undisputed Era win was really cool. It kind of makes me worry, though, that NXT is winning either no matches on Sunday or very few. I mean, there is only 5, brand versus brand matches. They have the 2 elimination matches, and they have the 3 champion versus champion matches. One with the tag team champs, one with the mid-card champs, and one with the women's champions, So I can see them winning maybe the women's one. And I said this on Wrestle Rant Radio, and maybe one other one. But it still worries me. They've looked really good on the road to Survivor Series, but they may not win many matches on the show itself, because that's booking 101 in WWE. But this was a good match, though. Glad they won. So after the match, they had Nakamura and Roderick Strong go at it, only to be attacked by AJ Styles, who joined the fray. So this match was announced for the card, I think a week and a half ago on Raw. I think on last week's Raw, not this week. but about a week and a half ago. And it's really gotten no attention since then. Roderick had his feud on NXT with, Keith Lee and Team Ciampa, those guys. He's been on Raw and SmackDown since then, but he hasn't really interacted with AJ at all, or Shinsuke Nakamura. And even with Nakamura and AJ, they've had zero interaction since the match was announced a week and a half ago. So we got that here. We got a little bit of it on NXT this week with Roderick Strong and Nakamura, with Roddy coming out to attack Nakamura when Nakamura tried to attack Matt Riddle. So we got all three guys brawling here after the match. Well done stuff. I missed this part, but Alexis filled me in while we were watching the show. I went upstairs to go get a drink. So they come back from commercial, and AJ's on the mic, running down Chicago, calling it one of the most depressing cities, if not the most depressing city he's ever been in, which I can't attest to that. I love Chicago every time I've been there, and granted, which is only 2 times. But anytime I've been there, I've loved the city. So AJ might be bullshitting here. But anyway, he runs down the crowd, and then, obviously, it elicits very loud CM Punk chants, which you gotta know are gonna follow CM Punk, or rather Seth Rollins, anywhere he goes going forward. For all the shit that he's talked about Punk, not really shit that he's talked, but for as many times as he's called out Punk in the last 10 days alone, you gotta know that those CM Punk chants, not only this weekend at Survivor Series in Chicago and wherever else he shows up Raw, they're not only going to pop up then, they will pop up at every fucking show going forward. So if you were sick of the CM Punk chants before, good golly, buckle in, because they're not going anywhere anytime soon. That being said, so they responded with the CM Punk chants after AJ called himself like the best wrestler in the world or something like that. And he said, "Oh, bring him here and I'll take him out too, or I'll clean him up real good," or something dumb like that. So basically quieting the CM Punk chants, which was pretty cool on AJ's part. So then we had Daniel Bryan come out, which was advertised as a summoning. They kept saying summoning the Fiend. Like, just say fucking calling out the Fiend. You don't have to say summon. Like, I know he's the Fiend. He's like this devilish character, but still, it just sounds stupid. So he calls out Wyatt, only to get the Miz instead, which actually makes sense, because poor Miz. I mean, the guy's still a babyface, and he's getting shit thrown at him. Not literally, thankfully, but like verbally by Bryan last week on Miz TV. He invited Bryan on his show, and Bryan is running down the Miz, calling his show stupid, and calling the Miz himself stupid. Now, granted, from a storyline standpoint, they've never seen eye to eye. They've been feuding since Bryan debuted in the company almost 10 years ago. Believe it or not, 10 years ago. They had their run-ins in 2010, had their run-ins in 2016, they had their run-ins in 2018, so I would understand why Bryan has no shortage of bad blood for the Miz. But it was still really uncharacteristic of this guy, Daniel Bryan, who is seemingly on the verge of going back to being a babyface, and he's running down a fellow babyface in the Miz. I just thought that was weird. So Miz comes out, retaliates verbally at Bryan, saying, "Listen, I try to help you, dude, but if you don't want my help, I try to slap some sense into you, so I'll just do part of it right here." So he slaps Bryan across the face, leading to the two having a match, which was interrupted by a commercial fucking break. So he slaps Bryan, and they just cut the commercial break. It's like their new thing now. Like their whole thing a few months ago where they can't have, matches or wrestling during the commercial breaks. Their new thing now is where they cut to commercial randomly to build suspense. Like on Monday's Raw, when the Iconics were out there with Becky and Charlotte, and then Samoa Joe came out randomly, and then they came back from commercial and he was on commentary. Like, okay, wasn't there a better way of doing that? Like, it seemed very odd. It's just not consistent. The match was fine while it lasted. It got all of like 2 or 3 minutes before they could really get going. Out came the Fiend. So the Let's Go out. Let's go back on. The Fiend is sitting in the corner, the same spot that Miz was in when Bryan went after him. Bryan was about to hit like the running knees in the corner or whatever. And he was doing the S chant, I guess. I missed it, but Alexis picked up on it, which was cool. But the Let's Go out, they go back on. Wyatt is sitting in the same turnbuckle post that Miz was in before the lights went out. So the Fiend goes after Bryan, lays him out with a mandible claw, and that was the end of the segment. So this was supposed to get heat on Wyatt. Again, the feud hasn't really been overly amazing so far. It's been good, but not as good as I think it has the potential to be, given the talent involved. But this was still solid, though, and provided effective hype for the Universal Championship match this Sunday at Survivor Series. So we had a pretty short and sweet segment after that. I don't know if they were running short on time or what the deal was, but Shayna Baszler comes out, okay, who Bayley called out earlier in the evening backstage in a promo, saying that, "Oh, Shayna has attacked me from behind. Just come out tonight and I'll beat you up face to face." So Shayna comes out, cuts a promo about how Bayley's like, she told Bayley, listen, I've attacked you from behind week after week now. That's bullshit. We both know I will knock you out of your ass, right on your ass right now. Not out of your ass. That makes no sense. I will knock you on your ass right now if you come confront me, woman to woman, face to face. Before Bayley could come out, she does come out, but again, attack Shayna from behind. So it's cowardly the same way that Shayna attacked Bayley, Bayley attacked Shayna. So, typical heel stuff, it makes sense. She lays her out quickly, runs through the stage. Shayna doesn't go after her, and that's the end of the segment. A little underwhelming, and the crowd was hoping Becky would come out the same way that we got, with the, not Viking Raiders didn't come out during the tag team stuff, but we got AJ and Roddy and Nakamura going at it, and Team Raw, Team SmackDown, Team NXT earlier. So you would think that this would be a logical place for Becky to come out, but maybe they didn't want to blow their load with it, I don't know. But Becky was nowhere to be seen on this show. As far as I know, she wasn't in the post, show brawl or in the brawl earlier on in the evening. As far as I know, she was not on the show. Which makes sense. She was on NXT this week. She faced Rhea Ripley. No real need for her to be in this match. So we get to the main event. King Corbin, Robert Roode, and Dolph Ziggler taking on Roman Reigns, Mustafa Ali, Chicago Zone, and Shorty G, fucking Chad Gable. I wrote down Shorty G here in my review, but clearly he's still Chad Gable, because that name is completely ridiculous. The match was actually pretty fun. Nice pace. The crowd was into it. Love seeing Ali getting the shine in his hometown of Chicago. I like that a lot. They worked a good pace, like I said. Nothing too special about it, but as a go-home show main event, it was completely serviceable. Now, a lot like Raw on Monday, what sense did it make for the members of Team SmackDown to be facing each other here on the show when it's supposed to be Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT? Right now, they're facing each other. Did it make much sense? Absolutely not. No, it did not. It made no sense at all. But they want to further the feud between Roman and Corbin going into TLC, where there is rumored to be a dog collar match between the two. I may have talked about this last week, but no fucking thank you. That sounds atrocious. So Corbin wins at like 9:52. And by that point, I'm thinking, okay, they're going off the air with the typical annual brawl. We've gotten a bunch this week on Raw and on SmackDown to the point where I'm just kind of tired of seeing them. I was tired of seeing them earlier this week because we've seen a ton in the last 3 weeks. But they do this every single year before the pay-per-view, where they have Raw invade SmackDown or SmackDown invade Raw. That was exactly what we got this year, with all three brands going at it. And to their credit, it was actually pretty entertaining. We saw Keith Lee square off with Braun Strowman before they went off the air. A lot of people were out there. And again, this may not be for everyone. I thought it was a cool touch when they showed Team NXT and they showed NXT kind of coming through the arena, the gates of the arena, and they showed the army truck with Road Dogg as the driver. Triple H was in there, of course, and Shawn Michaels, kind of playing off of how DX invaded Nitro to an extent 20 years ago. I thought that was actually kind of cool. Forced, maybe, but I don't know, I liked it. I thought the tie-in was nice, and they'll probably never get to do something like that again. So for what that was, I thought it was honestly really cool. No one brand stood tall in the end. We just went off the air with a bunch of chaos. So again, nice, well-done brawl. It's just the fact that we've seen so many of them in the last couple of days, if not weeks, that they've really kind of grown thin with me on the road to Survivor Series. But I thought the build, honestly, to the pay-per-view on the show is pretty well done, if you ask me. You may not be looking forward to the pay-per-view because you don't care about the brand supremacy stuff. Fuck, I don't either. But on paper, it looks to be a pretty good show if they can book it properly. Again, that's very... I can understand why many. I can understand why many would be skeptical. I'll just put it that way. I can understand why people would have their guard up with this show, thinking it may not be as good as they probably want it to be. But I still think it has potential, though. So I'm looking forward to it. Overall, I thought this was a very successful go-home show. Some good matches. The opener with Ripley, Flair, and Banks was good. Undisputed Era versus New Day and Heavy Machinery was fun. The main event was fun for what it was. The Chicago crowd was great overall. Looking forward to the atmosphere they bring on Saturday at TakeOver and on Sunday at Survivor Series and during Monday's Raw as well. Because now they do the Friday show in the same city where they host the pay-per-view. So before it was Saturday NXT, Sunday the WWE main roster pay-per-view like Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, whatever. Raw on Monday, and then SmackDown on Tuesday. But now that SmackDown's airing on Fridays, they've bumped up the schedule by 1 week. Now, I have no idea if you're going to a WWE show, why the fuck would you waste your money on a go-home show for the pay-per-view when you could just go to the pay-per-view itself or a takeover, or even the post-show Raw, the post-pay-per-view Raw, which can be exciting. I mean, they usually reshuffle the deck, and we could get some big debuts. I read a rumor earlier from WrestlingNews.co, I think it was. And take this with a grain of salt, that there might be some sort of big surprise for Team NXT. I think for TakeOver on Saturday, not necessarily Survivor Series. But hey, they have yet to announce Team NXT for the pay-per-view on Sunday, so hey, fuck, they could very well introduce a big name for that team on Sunday too. I think it's probably, my gut is telling me, John Morrison. I think that just makes the most sense. There's no real place that makes sense for him right now on Raw or SmackDown, and I feel like, RJ brought it up a couple days ago when we were talking on WrestleRant Radio about how, we've seen him as Intercontinental Champion now how many fucking times? How many times have we seen him as, a tag team champion? And would it be cool to see him rekindle his rivalry even the tag team, or even the tag team with The Miz? Of course. But The Miz means nothing right now, so to see him feuding with The Miz really just does nothing for me. So I would build The Miz back up in the meantime, but more so Morrison, and put him on NXT. Especially if Gargano's going to be out for the foreseeable future. Not that NXT needs a new top babyface. They have plenty of talent over there. We know that, like Kushida, I know he's injured right now too. Not as long-term as Gargano might be, but he's another guy who has yet to have a TakeOver match. So, they don't really need Morrison, but I do think he would be a good addition to that brand. He would be refreshing in the same way that Drew McIntyre was a few years ago when he came back to the company and returned on NXT. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to both shows. I enjoyed this episode of SmackDown. Most matches advertised for the pay-per-view on Sunday received an ample amount of attention, received an ample amount of build, and I like that. I really do. So, again, I enjoyed the show. You may not have, but I thought it did a good job of setting the stage for Survivor Series on Sunday. Would love to know what you guys thought of the show, either in the comment section down below, on my socials, Facebook, Twitter. The links are down below in the description box. And as always, guys, the reviews may be delayed because I will be watching the shows with Alexis on Saturday, TakeOver definitely, and Survivor Series on Sunday with her and her family, actually. So that review may not be up, will probably not be up until Monday. I will guarantee you of that right now. But TakeOver might be up late Saturday, so keep an eye out for that. Either way, though, I am very excited for both events. They should be great on paper. And, yeah, a couple plugs here before we go off and ride off into the sunset as we look forward to Survivor Series weekend. One, first and foremost, as I said earlier, check out Thursday's WrestleRant Radio for my full preview and predictions for TakeOver War Games 3 and Survivor Series on Sunday, alongside the returning RJ Marceau. That's available on nextairwrestling.net and also on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Google Play, all over the place, baby. So subscribe to the podcast today and get our full preview and predictions for the pay-per-views this weekend. And also, be sure to subscribe to this very channel. In addition to liking this video, dropping a comment, sharing the video, subscribe to the channel first and foremost, most importantly, above all else, to get all the other content coming up over the course of the weekend, including, but not limited to, reviews of WWE Untold. Sting's Last Stand, which should be going up actually later today. My review of that should be going up a little later on today as I put this up on Saturday. Sunday, my review of Chronicle featuring Cain Velasquez should also be uploaded. Monday, hopefully, if not Tuesday, my review of the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast, the debut of Broken Skull Sessions with The Undertaker. And then the following day, whatever airs after Raw on Monday and the day of episode. There's a lot going up on the network. Let's just put it that way. In the coming days. So now is as good of a time as any to subscribe to the channel and get notified when all that content is uploaded. With that being said, guys, enjoy your Survivor Series weekend. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.